97% of people on this planet are what you and I would consider good, empathetic and capable of love. But the other 3%, which is over 240 million people worldwide, are sinister and downright devious. So statistically, you've already met one. But the scary part is, evil doesn't always look like evil. It can smile, be charming, seem caring, and even devoted to you. But with the first chance they get, they will betray you without even thinking twice. Because some people don't want to connect, they want control. Just enough to turn your life upside down if you trust the wrong one. Hey friend, I'm Christy, a board-certified nurse practitioner, health coach, and trauma survivor. This is Trauma Free, where I help you change your mind and change your life, just like I did, using neuroscience, psychology, and lived experience. And today, we're breaking down the real science of evil, how to recognize it, and how to protect yourself so you never have to second guess your gut again. So let's get into it. Let's get one thing clear. Most people are not evil. In fact, the vast majority of us are wired for connection and compassion. But the harm you've experienced, whether it was manipulation, betrayal, or emotional destruction, might not have come from just anyone, because science shows that some of the harm that we've experienced is caused by a very small percentage of the population, those with deep-rooted antisocial traits. And these aren't just personality quirks. They're diagnosable patterns of behavior that can be seen in the brain, because the most dangerous individuals often fall in one or more of these categories, including antisocial personality disorder, which is characterized by a chronic disregard for the rights of others. Narcissistic personality disorder, which is characterized by a fragile ego hidden behind manipulation, grandiosity, and a lack of empathy. Psychopathy, which is characterized by a cold and calculated mindset, often masked by charm. And Machiavellianism, which is characterized by a strategic, manipulative orientation that sees people as pawns. Collectively, these are known as the dark triad, or tetrad when sadism is included. And shockingly, people with these traits don't think or feel like the rest of us. And this isn't because of lack of morals. It's actually neurological. So let's take psychopathy for example. Studies using brain scans showed that they exhibit reduced activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear and empathy. And they also have abnormalities in the prefrontal cortex, which controls impulses and moral reasoning. So in plain English, they don't just lack remorse. They lack the ability to control their emotions. Imagine you have an inner voice that says, don't lie, don't cheat, or don't hurt them, because it's wrong. Now imagine living without that voice. And that's what makes them so dangerous. They're not just ignoring guilt. They never feel it. And here's what's worse. Many are socially skilled. They learn to mimic empathy. They say all the right things and even cry when you cry. But it's a mask. And if you're someone with a big heart, you might be the perfect target. Here's the most unsettling part of all of this. People who do the most harm, they rarely think that they're doing anything wrong. In fact, many of them believe that they're the victim in the story because their minds are wired for their own self-preservation and not self-reflection. So they rationalize by thinking, he had it coming, she disrespected me, or I was just being honest. They project and accuse you of the very thing that you're doing, lying, cheating, and manipulating. But suddenly, it's your fault. And they minimize by saying, that wasn't abuse, you're too sensitive, and I said I was sorry, what more do you want? But this isn't remorse, it's control, disguised as justification. and individuals with antisocial traits and psychopathy have been shown to have reduced connectivity between the prefrontal cortex, which handles decision making and morality, and the limbic system, where empathy lives. Evil doesn't always show up with a warning label. It doesn't wear a mask of cruelty, it wears one of charm, concern, and even love. That's what makes it so hard to see until you're already entangled. So, how do you spot the signs before it's too late? Let's break down their behavioral red flags backed by psychology and trauma science. Number 1, they fake empathy. They know exactly what to say, but not what to feel. They mimic concern with scripted words, yet their tone, timing, and actions never match. Why? Because real empathy activates the limbic system, specifically the anterior insula and the amygdala, and in narcissists and psychopaths, these areas show reduced activation, meaning they can fake emotion but don't feel it. Number 2, they lack remorse. They only apologize when it serves them, to avoid consequences or reel you back in. You'll notice it's always conditional, always followed by but, because true remorse requires moral reasoning, which is often impaired with people with antisocial traits due to dysfunction in the ventral media prefrontal cortex. Number 3, they gaslight. You bring up a valid concern, suddenly you're the problem. You're too sensitive. That never happened. Or you're imagining things, because gaslighting is the manipulation tactic designed to make you question your reality, your memory, and eventually your sanity. And simply stated, it's psychological abuse. Number 4, they use isolation tactics. They slowly pull you away from people who protect you. They don't say, don't see your friends. They say, your friends don't understand us, or I just want more alone time. So it feels romantic until you realize you've cut off everyone and now you're confused and under their control. Because isolation weakens your support system and makes you easier to dominate. Number 5, they emotionally blackmail and say things like, after everything I've done for you, they take advantage of your kindness and use your guilt as their weapon against you. But this sounds less like love and more like coercion. Number 6, they use possessiveness disguised as love. They say things like, I'm just protective because I care, which really means I want control. They have extreme jealousy, constant check-ins, and stalk your social media. But these aren't signs of love. They're signs of insecurity, entitlement, and control. Lastly, number 7, they enjoy your pain. They may smirk when you cry, they sabotage your joy, and they seem most powerful when you're most powerless. This is called everyday sadism, and yes, it's real, because studies show that some individuals actually derive pleasure from others' suffering, and the behavior often begins subtly. They don't change because they want to. They manipulate because it works. And if your gut ever whispers something like, this isn't right, listen to it, because your nervous system is more intelligent than you think. It picks up on microsignals your conscious brain misses. So that unease or that tension in your chest, that's your biology warning you. You are not safe here. So when you ask them to understand how they hurt you, you're asking them to access a part of the brain that may be disconnected or completely impaired, because they don't just avoid accountability. They're most likely neurologically incapable of experiencing guilt, empathy, or deep emotions the way you do. So that's what makes them so dangerous. They believe their pain is valid, but yours is an inconvenience, and they see their actions as justified, but you're overreacting. So no matter how calm you are, how much evidence you provide, or how many chances you give, they don't change, because in their eyes, they're not the ones in the wrong. So let's get the record straight. Monsters aren't born, they're made, because people aren't born evil. But when certain risk factors combine, like genetics, trauma, environment, and neurobiology, it can shape someone into a person capable of manipulating, abusing, or even destroying others without any remorse. So now, let's discuss what goes wrong in these individuals. Number one, they have different brain structure and neurology due to frontal lobe dysfunction. The frontal lobe is like the brain's moral compass and impulse control center. It helps us pause, reflect, and consider consequences. When it's underdeveloped or impaired through genetics, head trauma, or neglect, you get increased impulsivity, poor emotional regulation, and a lack of long-term thinking, which is a common pattern in psychopathy and antisocial personality disorder. They have low amygdala reactivity. The amygdala regulates fear and empathy, two emotions that keep most people from doing harm. But studies show that in many individuals with psychopathic traits, the amygdala is underactive or even structurally smaller. That means that they may not feel fear when hurting others or guilt afterwards. Imagine a car with no brakes. That's their emotional system. Number two, they endured childhood trauma and emotional stunting. Most people don't wake up one day and decide to be abusive. They adapted in order to survive pain, not necessarily to cause it. Neglect, abuse, or chronic invalidation in early childhood often leads to emotional numbing, hypervigilance or hyperawareness, and manipulation as a survival tactic. Because when a child learns that vulnerability leads to punishment or abandonment, they may shut off the very parts of themselves that connect with others. In trauma terms, this is called attachment wounding, and it's one of the earliest predictors of toxic relationship patterns later in life. But here's the distinction. Surviving pain doesn't justify inflicting it. Number three, they grew up in difficult environmental and socioeconomic factors. Poverty, systemic injustice, lack of access to mental health support are all stressors that increase externalized aggression in some people. And for those already biologically vulnerable, it can be their tipping point. Let me be clear. If you've been manipulated, betrayed, or hurt by someone dangerous, it's not your fault. Smart people, loving people, and even trauma-informed people have all gotten caught in these cycles because we've been taught to override our intuition in the name of love and loyalty. So let's discuss what to do if you've been targeted. Step 1. Stop rationalizing their behavior. Your brain is wired for connection, especially if you've been through trauma. So when someone harms you, your nervous system often searches for meaning to make it make sense. But the more we justify toxic behavior, the more we weaken the brain's natural threat detection system. That means your amygdala, your internal alarm, starts malfunctioning, and you stop trusting yourself. You may say things like, they didn't mean it, they had a hard childhood, or maybe I'm overreacting. But you need to stop. Because that's not compassion. That's conditioning. Step 2. Rebuild your inner compass. Trauma and manipulation distort your internal system. So to heal, you must retrain your brain to recognize what safety feels like, what control feels like, and what self-worth sounds like. This is neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire. So every time you say no to a toxic pattern and say yes to yourself, you fire new neural pathways. And it's not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes the biggest healing moment is quietly whispering, this doesn't feel right, and I'm done. Step 3. Cut off contact when necessary. Not every manipulator deserves closure. And not every villain wants redemption. Sometimes the most empowering thing that you can do is block, delete, and move forward with your life. Because narcissists and high conflict personalities use your empathy and compassion against you. And they test your boundaries. So if someone only respects you when you disappear, they never respected you at all. Step 4. Reclaim your power through education and embodiment. You heal by growing wiser and by living more in your truth. So start small by educating yourself on narcissistic abuse. Try journaling your story and not their version of it. And practice somatic healing like breathwork, movement, and grounding. Because embodiment practices like yoga, dance, and breath regulation lower cortisol and rebalance the autonomic nervous system, helping you shift from hypervigilance to inner peace. It was never about you being unlovable. It was about them being incapable of love and in a safe and regulated way. Remember, although evil is rare, it does exist. But with the right awareness, it never has to control you again. And real talk, what you don't heal, you will repeat. Because the cycle doesn't break when they change, it breaks when you wake up. You can retrain your nervous system to recognize safety and to trust your gut again. And if this message resonated with you, subscribe to Trauma Free for more science backed truth, healing strategies, and real talk on trauma, manipulation, and mindset. And drop a comment if you feel called, because your story matters, and I would love to hear it, and others would too. So until next time, stay trauma free and take care.